you need to know and how to prepare. This is one of our presentations in our You Already Own It series that Planet provides. So if you have questions, please at any time, put them in chat. I can call on you if you raise your hand as well. And we will have some extra time at the very end for some more Q&As. Oh, echo. And we also have some collected questions that we gathered ahead of time. So let's hop into it. A reminder, please, everybody, today's meeting is being recorded. So for your awareness. Agenda today. I like to start these things out with the core interrogatives, the who, what, when, where, how, and why of the topic. So what is coming to GCC High? When is it coming? Now that we know that, why preparation matters. We'll get into those details. And then how to prepare. We've got some sub-bullet points there for you to review. We'll get into each one of those and cover any questions that we get throughout the presentation, and again, those that we've compiled and curated before the meeting began. So, not to bury the lead, what is coming to GCC? It is Microsoft 365 Copilot. Here, I'll take a second to talk about the branding, because there are many Copilot branded services, applications, and features and integrations throughout the Microsoft 365 suite. Microsoft 365 Copilot is the overarching umbrella for the brand. And you can see in the description over here, this is updated as of the 8th. This includes the chat. It includes the integrations into the Microsoft 365 apps, as you can see right over here. And all of the accompanying bells and whistles with some restrictions. Web grounding is off, for example, in the GCC High. It is off by default. It is available to be enabled, but that is an opt-in. So it will not send out queries based on your prompts to augment by default. Once again, you can see that we have this. Let's see if my little arrow thing works. GCC High is the target, and it is slated for December of 2025. This actually got updated just a few days ago. We were thinking it might come out in November, but December is the new date. We have started hearing reports of some customers seeing some of the administrative pages light up, because as you know, the rollouts are in phased deployment according to regions in the way that Microsoft hands them out. So GCC High, December 2025, here's what's coming. Let's talk some more about it. Once again, feel free to raise your hand and I can call on you. So Copilot is a big brand. This part is grayed out. We wanted to include just the relevant portion. It is this slice of the Copilot pie, so to speak, that we're talking about, the modern work components, not the other components. As you can see down over here, it's a little blurry, but these are the Microsoft 365 apps and services. You can expect the integration into that. The Microsoft 365 chat app itself, Copilot chat app, that's part of it, and some other associated services. Let's talk about, now that we know what is coming, let's talk about what that implies, entails for yourself if you're contemplating this. It's not a surprise to anybody, we're all technologists, that IT projects tend to fail. This isn't just an item that presents itself in the defense industrial base or in DoD, just IT projects in general tend to fail. And we want to keep that at the forefront of our mind, because turning on the service by itself is a recipe for failure, in my opinion. It sets your company up for failure, rework, delayed timelines, project plans being pushed to the right, and that leads to a failed project. Very telling over here is 60% of organizations, they're stuck at the pilot stage. So you get executive sponsorship, your prime sponsors it, you have the appropriate top cover, you create a community of interest, perhaps even a community of excellence, you identify the players, and then the project never gets out of pilot stage. That is very telling. It talks about all of the things around a pilot or a proof of concept that need to be present in order to have a successful deployment. Adoption equals success. This is just a regular OCM, or organizational or operational change management tenet. If you don't advertise the change consistently, if you don't train for the change, if you don't measure the change, how do you know that it's impacting anything? How do you know that the metrics that you've defined, the KPIs, are being affected? That's all part of OCM. Even when it's out and you advertise it, users struggle. They don't know how to use it. Perhaps particularly in the case of artificial intelligence in general, they might have some preconceived biases against using artificial intelligence. Maybe it's going to take my job. Maybe it's going to go ahead and reduce my influence. There are all kinds of concerns, very human concerns, that are mixed into the technical concerns and the security concerns. This is all part of, once again, organizational change management and what you should hang around it. If you don't have good adoption, I'll say that one last time, you don't have ROI. You want that return on investment. From the failures of these projects, trends emerge. If you do an analysis writ large across a basket of failed projects, these are about 6 of the leading themes that show up. Leadership gaps, pretty easy to identify. You don't have top cover. This cannot be an IT-driven endeavor. It cannot come from the ground up. It has to have appropriate executive sponsorship. We all know that. Insufficient training, that's also pretty obvious. If you might think that AI is simply prompting, it is more than that, but we're talking about Copilot, so it largely is prompting. And your users should know how to prompt in a better way to get faster results. Data readiness. I've talked to customers that have not just 1, not 2, but perhaps 20, I'm using air quotes for those of you not able to see me, 20 authoritative databases or 20 authoritative CRM systems. Garbage in, garbage out. So you cannot expect artificial intelligence to give you the right answer if you don't have your data cleaned, disambiguated, deduped. You get better results from the data that you feed the large language model in Copilot. This is a big one, security and compliance concerns. This actually, in my experience, manifests itself in customer spaces before they even agree to launch a project, and then it's consistent all the way throughout. CISO offices are very much concerned about these. How do you secure the data? How do you make sure that your queries aren't going out to the open internet? You don't want to tip your hand to competition about what it is that you're searching for. Yeah. So very big issue there. Low awareness and engagement, that goes back to OCM and training. These are kind of hand in hand, insufficient training. And I'll group it even with the unrealistic expectations. Copilot and large language models writ large, they are not magic. They are better all the time. They are better right now than they were this morning because it's constantly improving, but they are not magic. You need to train your users to utilize the Copilot capability, but also to think critically about it, learn where you need to do more verification or where you can run with the answer relatively quickly. So these are the top themes. At this point, I'd like to turn it over to my colleague Demetrius to talk about what we see being successful approaches to this.
Yes, thank you. Yes, thank you, Mario. So what you're seeing here is the typical Copilot for M365 journey. Thank you all for joining because most of you are in, stage 1, as Copilot is not been made available as of yet. But as you can see, the primary purpose of this slide is it's not just a one and done activity, right? There's multiple steps, multiple phases that need to be undertaken as you prepare to move down your Copilot journey. Next slide. So what we have here is Copilot's enablement engagement, the plan it has, that really shows you a framework of day 0 and day 1. And it's key because a lot of times people focus on what do I need to do in order to prepare for Copilot and Copilots being made available for my environment. We went through this for the commercial side. We went through this for GCC when it first came out. And we've learned a lot, and we've created a framework to help you all be successful as you prepare down that path. As you can see, there's multiple phases under these pillars. You have discovery and planning, right? And discovery and planning is really making sure you can understand, hey, where is Copilot going to be useful in my environment? But also, it's where you actually start doing your initial data security assessment of your M365 tenant. A lot of those concerns come up in terms of, hey, am I oversharing? Where is Copilot going to be able to access? Am I going to have an inadvertent um, internal breach of some sort, right? I need to understand what data is going to be returned, what Copilot has access to, et cetera. So we help you with all those things. We also help you focus on, your organizational readiness for AI. So it's not just a technology aspect that we're focusing on in these early phases. We're focusing on both, hey, helping you envision those functional scenarios where you can get immediate value, but also start that data security assessment as well. Once you get past that, you move into a readiness remediation phase, right? This is where we're going to hand you over a technical action plan. And in that technical action plan, these are the things that, hey, that we found during that security assessment, the things that need to be addressed prior to rolling out Copilot. So you look at it in terms of, here's the things that I need to be able to I've identified oversharing, things I've identified in terms of retention policies. Maybe I don't want to make it available from a security perspective. So you want to create a data governance security plan for Copilot. You're also going to start talking about what are your adoption goals. We're going to work with you and all those things. We work with a lot of customers in terms of those phases, and then begin your communication strategy, right? Specifically for the initial set of pilot users that you would incur. This is a framework, whether, this is not something you have to do with Planet or not. It's just something that we've seen be successful in terms of preparing for Copilot, right? And then you look at, who are those initial set of end users that you're going to focus on? You're going to look at identifying, a group of users, probably by persona or department, that you would say, here are the initial set of users that we're going to target for Copilot readiness in our environment. So you're going to configure your dashboard access, your tenant settings, and you're ready to say, hey, I'm ready to start rolling it out. Here are the departments that I'm going to focus on. You're going to implement all the different things to identify and create those initial people as champions for your environment, right? Because they're going to be your advocates as you start to roll it out to the larger organization. These Copilot envisioning workshops, those are workshops that help you start looking at some of the use cases that you identified. How do those expand? How do those are those inclusive of of all different activities? We want to make sure your users understand how to interact with Copilot as well. Mario touched on something very early on the previous slide, is the training of the end users is more than just, hey, this is Copilot, but also it's how to get the most out of your investment in Copilot, right? So that's prompt engineering, showing them, hey, your prompts matter. The better you get at your prompts, the better you will get in terms of your results. And then you start gathering that data, evaluating your feedback, and then you're looking on to being able to deploy it for the initial pilot use that you've identified. One of the things that we do at Planet to help with that is continue that process into a continuous evaluation phase, because you've done your initial pilots, you've shown some success, you're pretty happy, you may have gathered some ROI metrics in terms of here's the value we've gotten out of our pilot users, which is always important. And then you start saying, okay, where does other agents come into play? So those are questions about, agents for business productivity as opposed to personal productivity. But that's part of the continuous evaluation, adoption, development phase. So as you can see, it's about 6 to 8 weeks and ongoing just to get to day one. And that's to say, day one is really saying, hey, I have it now deployed in my environment to a subset of users at minimum, and I'm starting to get value out of it. I'll pause there. Are there any questions on that? Okay. So then the next question comes up. Go ahead. Next slide, please, Mario. So this is a summary of all those activities of all those pillars that you just saw that show, there's multiple things that happen when the need to happen as you prepare to implement Copilot in your environment. There was an organizational readiness aspect. There's making sure your environment is configured configured correctly. And then there's also the all important aspect of the data access and protection capabilities, right? Making sure you have, your privacy, your security lifecycle settings, making sure you have privileged identity management set up, you have sensitivity label, you have DLP policies all identified and applied, right? And so, you know where your areas of opportunity are in terms of oversharing and inactive spaces that you don't want Copilot to assess. These are things that are all part of the day zero, day one framework for Copilot. And then the all important training and user support. We don't put enough stress on organizational change management a lot of times. IT projects are, it's easy to turn the widget on. It's more important to help the users understand the why behind it. How does it impact what they do every single day? Because HR is going to use Copilot different than the marketing teams. The marketing team is going to use it different from, your internal ops folks. And so it's making sure they understand how to leverage leverage Copilot for the things that they do every day, all day. So the next question comes up. Okay, I have rolled out Copilot. I've gotten to day one. What's that, right? What's the next thing I need to focus on? And obviously, that's that larger adoption and expansion. So as you can see here, we have 4 additional pillars, right? Those 4 additional pillars start focusing on that strategic value, right? What are the things that have shown success for Copilot? Do we have additional early adopters? How am I tracking those metrics? What are the productivity gains? What are the productivity gains that I've achieved, right? Being able to track those quarterly assessment and optimization activities. Those are things that we put a heavy focus on with all of our customers in terms of making sure that you are seeing the most and getting the most out of your Copilot investment. And then being able to identify additional use cases that will expand your use of Copilot, understanding, hey, here's where we've been able to take our champions, things that they share with our internal teams. We've been able to do continued user training and awareness. We're able to track that success. And then as you move to enterprise-wide enablement, right? And so we focus on that. And we also focus on additional agent creation. Again, the agent creation is more so focused on department by department business productivity or enterprise business productivity. But, it's all about how do we get to day one? Well, then once you get to day one, that conversation quickly shifts to, and all right, so what happens after tomorrow? We've completed this rollout. Now we're looking at what happens tomorrow. And so that's where we start focused on day 2 and beyond activities. So one of the questions that always comes up, and people are saying, how do we train our users for Copilot and AI, right? It's a little bit different because as I mentioned earlier, with AI and Copilot, it's a little bit different. There's not a singular organization-wide training plan. Yes, you can train everyone on, hey, here's what Copilot is, and here's what Copilot does. But when you start looking at Copilot specifically, you gotta say, understanding that this Gen AI capabilities, everyone's going to be interacting with it different, right? And they need to understand, how does this pertain to us? So we have our embedded in all of these activities the Evolve 365 platform for specifically modules for Copilot. And what that does, it has these on-demand and continuous learning modules specific to Copilot. These are mini training sessions, typically ranging from about a minute to 2 minutes at max, right? In terms of being able to quickly identify what you're looking to do and get information back on how to do it. The more importantly is also the promptathon training sessions. These are continuous promptathons for your end users to be able to help them do better prompts, understanding how they can get better retained personal prompts. And then that persona-based examples of, making sure that the various departments have specific cases on and understanding on how they can actually use Copilot for the things that they do every day to achieve the mission. And so I just wanted to share this with you all to know that, yes, there is help there. It's included in those engagements that we have around our day 0 and day 1 engagements, as well as day 2.
Thank you very much.
Go ahead, Mario. I'll turn it back over to you.
Thank you so much, Demetrius, for that insight. Just taking a quick breath here. Any questions from the content so far? Once again, feel free to put it in chat. There's a Q&A module in the chat, or you can raise your hand and I can call on you. In the absence of any immediate questions, I wanted to build off of what we just presented. So there are technical concerns, there are organizational concerns, there are operational concerns, data security concerns, training concerns. All of this seems pretty removed from the technical aspects of lighting up Copilot in your organization. But we have chosen to weight our presentation on those topics very specifically because of the second or third slide that I presented that started off with what 60%, 70% of users pilot programs are stuck at the pilot stage. That is why, because these things are not considered. So now that we've laid out what is coming, the concerns that those bring up, and we've talked about the various different motions and processes that you need to hang around the technology, let's talk about 3 solutions that Planet offers as part of the Already Own It series. We have a Microsoft 365 Copilot briefing, a Copilot agent briefing, and an AI decision matrix engagement. We'll cover those very briefly. The Copilot briefing, in a nutshell, it is, I think, your basic level 100 comprehensive overview of Copilot, level 100, if it were a college class, which I like to use those analogies quite often. High-level summary, it's a 2-hour presentation. What is an LLM? Why has it caught the world by storm? How does it work? How is it implemented in the Copilot for Microsoft 365 brand? What are the baseline adoption requirements? Basically, it addresses at a very high level everything we've talked about, especially the bottom part, focus areas and organizational readiness. Once again, if you don't have these things, what you're going to have is you're going to have a little box where you enter a prompt. You're going to kick it around. You're going to say, isn't that awesome? Isn't that neat? And then you're going to move on. But you already spent the money for the licenses. So we want to make sure that all of the customers that engage on this journey are well prepared to see an actual ROI when you go back to the accounting department. The second briefing that we have is a Copilot agent briefing, and as the name implies, it does what it says on the tin. This is also about Copilot, but it's more about agents. If you've lived through the last year and followed the news about AI, you've seen the shift from chat as the interface to agents and agentic flows, agents talking to other agents. Why does it matter? Why is industry investing a lot of money in that? Agents are pretty much making their way to every major CRM platform, certainly the Microsoft 365 platform, and onwards and onwards. This is a great entry point into that, and I can share with you that I think agents are going to really transform what work is going forward. And you're going to keep hearing about it, and then they're going to start building upon agents and agentic workflows and swarms of agents and managing agents that mirror other agents. It's a deep rabbit hole, and we've got the engagement to brief you on it. The final one that I wanted to highlight here is what we call the AI decision matrix for tech execs. If you have use cases, and I've actually have a customer in mind that I just talked with about this, they have specific use cases in mind on what they want to use Copilot for, and artificial intelligence writ large further down the road. But do their use cases match up with Copilot? Because Copilot is not a silver bullet. It is not the only artificial intelligence tool in the Microsoft ecosystem. It's the one we're talking about today, certainly, and it's the one that's going to be available on GCC High. But you want to know if, well, maybe Azure AI Foundry, when that becomes available, or Copilot Studio, would that be a better match? This is an entry point into that conversation. It analyzes your use case. It gives you the overview of what Microsoft AI platforms are available, how they could map to your use case, and how to choose the right AI tool for your use case. Then we have a little demo discussion at the end. That in summary, this is the last slide I have. It is Microsoft Copilot for GCC High coming in December of 2025. We see customers already asking us about it. We've signed up several customers to these engagements. We think it's a great entry point. And we urge you to prepare, regardless of which direction you choose to go with your deployments. Prepare, monitor, measure, and create that virtuous feedback loop to get that flywheel affected. At this point, I'd like to open it up for questions. Let me see what we have here. Will we have access to the recording of this meeting? Yes, the meeting is recorded. Casey will send out,
You'll receive a follow-up email with the recording as well as the presentation today.
I see another question. Are these geared towards the end users or the technical teams? I'm going to read a little bit into that question, and Demetrius, please feel free to hop in there.
I'll take a quick shot. So I want to make sure I answer the correct question. Are you referring to the URL sessions that Mario just mentioned?
Yes.
Yes. So the Copilot one is for sure, and actually the first two that he mentioned are targeted for IT execs and potentially end users, but I would say they're more targeted for the IT folks in your organization. However, the decision matrix is targeted for the execs. It's not particularly for the end users itself. We do have end user specific training available, but these you already own the sessions are typically targeted for your IT people.
Got it. Thanks.
No problem.
Thank you for the question. Let me see. I think I saw a new one come through. Vadim. Sorry, I know Vadim. Hello, my friend. Good to see you.
Hey, Mario. How are you?
Good. Good to hear your voice, my friend. Vadim asks, what do you see your other customers do around image creation, web grounding, and other potential compliance concerns? I know about web grounding. What is coming to GCC High is going to have web grounding turned off by default. So the feature is available. It will come configured off, and your organization can choose to opt in.
Yep. And what we've seen in GCC when we rolled it out is we've seen customers, slowly enable it based on their needs. So there's a mix, right? Some people say, hey, I want to initially deploy it where it's only available for internal, pulling internal information for M365 Copilot. And then as they get more and more comfortable, they will go down the point of allowing web grounding. We've seen other customers, however, say, listen, I want to ensure that I completely eliminate any need or desire to use external tools like ChatGPT, and they want to ensure they have enterprise data protection. So they will have web grounding enabled and just make sure their users understand how to interact and decipher between the two, right? What's being coming back from the internet versus what's coming back from work.
Vadim, did you want to follow up? Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I mean, that's what we're trying to decide, right? Because if you think about it, that can introduce image creation, can introduce potential concerns around compliance as well as HR, right?
Mm-hmm.
Potentially, and then web grounding, and anytime agent goes out of the boundary of the tenant, right? Then you have a question of how they can be treated. Yeah, no, that makes sense.
Very good. Thank you for the question, Vadim. I have a couple of questions that we collected prior to the webinar. These were submitted via our sign-up forms. One question that I wanted to highlight was how to initially withhold the access and have a controlled deployment of Copilot chat services while we write up our company policy and decide how to configure. I've got several suggestions for that. The easiest, most obvious way is to use licensing controls. So if you procure 5 licenses and you have a pilot, start small, have the technical people issue licenses to those. Nobody else can use the features. So that's the easiest way to control it. And then start assigning licenses for those features as you move forward. You can also configure access via the Microsoft 365 Administrative Center. We can send you details on how to access that. You can also have some policy, again, in the App Center or with group policy or even Intune to disable the connected experiences temporarily. And regardless of which approach you take for the controlled, measured phase deployment, you want all of those to have governance wrapped around them. You want to have your rules written. You want to have your concerns captured. You want to collect feedback from your small group of users because everything matters at scale. If you have 2 people using Copilot Chat and you encounter a problem, there's only 2 places to look. You remediate it before you broaden it out. If you have 50 people as part of your pilots because everybody wants the new cool widget, then you're going to run into more potential holes in the sieve. So be measured in your approach. Let's see. Did I see another question come in? Yes, let's see. The first question, I think, no features are available to users automatically. License control, it goes with that. We are unprepared for this, and we prefer not to get questions at this time. Do you have a TID to fully reigning Copilot from our users? So what is TID? Unfamiliar?
Yeah, can you expand on that acronym? Oh.
Yes. TID. We'll wait for an answer from that one. That was a question from John. Oh, technical guide.
Technical guide. Okay.
Yeah.
So we don't typically, at least the technical guide for Copilot. Are you? And I just want to get clarification. You say for your end users. I am assuming since it's a technical guide, you would be targeting your IT people. John? Yes. Okay. Yeah. So I don't know if we actually have a technical guide outside of what Microsoft publishes. We do work with our customers and tell them, hey, here's the things that need to happen, and here's what we would do. I'm almost certain that there is technical documentation provided out there on Microsoft. We can look into that and follow back up with you. It's not something that we just have available as a white paper or something that we hand out. We do heavily focus on, enablement for both your IT teams as well as your end users, right? So it's a holistic process, but we can follow back up there something specific that we can pass out to you.
Yeah, I agree 100% with what Demetrius just said. I'll add to that if you consider a different technology for a technical implementation guide, right? This is not like the DoD having a STIG where you have a very prescriptive set of activities that you do for a very specific version of a very specific product, like SQL Server. Here's the DoD technical implementation guide. Think of this more as, SharePoint. When you have SharePoint, how do I make an intranet? Well, do you want it blue? Do you want it red? How many people do you want? Do you want user groups? Do you want Active Directory groups? There's a myriad of directions that an implementation guide could take. These, I feel, tend to be most valuable when they are married to the concerns that we listed over here, that Demetrius covered here on the day 0 and the day 1, and then certainly going on to the day 2 for your specific organization. Because a university customer that handles CUI information is going to have different verbiage, different concerns, different sensitivities than, say, a defense contractor. So that's why we don't have one that is just ready-made for an implementation guide. And then if you add to that the fact that for Copilot, the interfaces are various, right? You could have Copilot inside of Word. You could have Copilot, the application, the chat interface. There's many different entry points into that. And will your organization light up all of them? Will it light up some of them? So once again, the good consultant answer is it depends. I'm sure you're all familiar with that. I see another question right now. Microsoft GCC High doesn't have fabrication. Will we see fabrication soon since AI is now in GCC High?
Yeah,
I don't have an answer to that.
Yeah, we don't have any published timeline of its availability.
Yeah, we are monitoring the roadmap, urge you all to monitor that. It's part of my job to look at that thing daily, just about, and read the tea leaves. But no timeline on fabrication availability. I think I have one more question down here. Oh, no, two more. Which productivity software will Copilot be paired with, and will there be documentation? Yes, all of the Microsoft 365 apps, going back to this slide here. All of these applications are going to have a Copilot presence, an icon in there. That is part of the advantage to standardizing on Copilot. If you are in the Microsoft ecosystem, it flows in. It's, preferred nation, first reach. So it'll be implemented with all of those. I got a question here about differences between commercial and GCC High. Well, first and foremost, for the commercial tenants, they use global Azure regions, and of course GCC High. This is not a difference specifically between Copilot and Copilot GCC High and Copilot Commercial. It's a difference really about the platforms themselves. So the platform upon which Copilot for GCC High sits is the GCC High separate Active Directory infrastructure. So that is going to be using US data only, US only data residency, US persons only support, and restricted AI model hosting. So there's only going to be certain AI models ultimately that make their way to GCC High. There's going to be differences, as there always are. Not to say something you already know, but as Microsoft codes something, they first code it in the commercial platform, obviously, least number of restrictions, most flexibility. And then they have to recode, refactor, re-architect some of those features to scope them into deployment for the higher level classification clouds. And the features vary sometimes in the implementation. So yes, there are differences. And certainly they fall behind on feature parity. So there's very rarely complete feature parity between what's in commercial and what shows up in GCC High. That's the second t-shirt that I want to have made, is when is feature so-and-so coming to GCC High? As a matter of fact, my friend Rima Reyes, who's still at Microsoft, has that same t-shirt. So I need to get that. And let's see. Oh, the last question is, Copilot is a name that is used to mean a lot of different products. In essence, this question is asking, what specifically are we talking about? And they asked for an infographic, which will be, this infographic will be here, but I'm going to paste the full version of that graphic in chat, which I just did. So you can see the whole Copilot ecosystem and universe. That's a pretty handy cheat sheet. Very good.
Yeah, I'm sorry,
Yes.
I would add on that, if you're talking to folks about the Copilot for M365, that graphic that Mario put it, that shows the actual slice that wasn't gray, is very helpful and help people understand and visualize where Copilot for M365 plays as opposed to all other Copilots.
I'll give you folks another couple of minutes. If you have any other questions, feel free to raise your hand or put it in the chat window. I can call on you. But that is the end of our content. What? Oh, Vadim, yes.
Question, Mario. Like, how do you see your other customers do reporting on like Copilot utilization, responsiveness, searches, things like that? Do they usually just use the pre-canned usage reports? Or what do they do if they need to go like deeper, right? They need to figure out like how user performance is, for example, any kind of safety LLM reporting or anything else regarding that.
Demetrius?
So yeah, I mean, you can use the Copilot dashboard. It shows the number of users, active users, prompts submitted, all those things. And if you're looking at, hey, I want to understand if my users are actually taking training for these things, how they're actually interacting with Copilot, there's separate reports for that inside of the Evolve 365 platform as well. So there's a couple of different ways for you to get that information. To be able to track trends over time. Am I having more or less utilization of Copilot? How many people are using it? What apps are they using it for? All those types of reports are available.
Very good. final call for any questions. I think I see another one. What will that modern work slice of the Copilot Pi be automatically enabled for users with E3 licenses?
So there's not really an automatic enablement of Copilot in your environment. You have to apply the licenses, right, for M365 Copilot. I'm assuming you're referring to M365 Copilot. You have to apply a license for those users for them to get access to Copilot. If they don't have a license, then they won't see anything different they see today.
Right. So once you pass that threshold of assigning a license to a user, they get that slice. Beyond that, once it's enabled, we talked a little bit about policy and some of the controls that you could institute.
No, the Copilot is advanced. I see the question they asked if Copilot is not included in the E3 license. Okay. No, it's a separate license.
Yeah.
Pilot chat is included in E3 though.
Yeah. Yeah, the Copilot chat is, I think you can enable it at the tenant level, but you can also do security entry. I can't speak for certain about Copilot chat. I'll have to defer to the Microsoft folks on that. But if it is, you can disable that.
Copilot chat is in E3 and E5. Your Copilot itself, I have an E5. There's a subscription that I had to fill out to get Copilot, which is a separate license. Yes.
Thank you for that, Rose. There's another one. Copilot chat is already available. We disabled the option to prevent it. How do we disable Copilot chat licenses? Is the answer once again. And is there guidance on how to clean up data that made it into Copilot that should not have? Think spill response. Oh, you're talking like a typical spillage scenario, right? I haven't heard of a remediation motion for spillage. So you're saying somebody goes ahead and pastes a whole bunch of information into the chat window or one of the various Microsoft 365 app interfaces with Copilot enabled, and oh my goodness, that's business sensitive information that should not have gone in there. That's the question, correct? Mike, wait. Nothing heard, but I'm going to assume that that's the question. I don't know of the remediation process that Microsoft has already published for such things. I know there are various spillage motions of various scenarios. Demetrius, do you know of any?
No, I think that question would actually
I went to a class. I can answer that question. During the Copilot class I went into, for spillage as such, you need to have e-discovery activated and that data pointing to, inside e-discovery to pick up that spillage.
Well, in that I'll also ask is if you're putting sensitivity labels on that data, it should help mitigate that possibility if you're appropriately labeling that data.
Yes, but you have to have DLP set as well for that.
Yes, correct.
So in essence, this is really the same e-discovery story as the rest of your corpus of data, right? Labeling, purview, e-discovery enabled, DLP, the same motions.
Yeah, and I mean, keep in mind, your data is kept in mailboxes, right? Or SharePoint for Copilot, depending what Copilot you're talking about. So your purview discovery can remove offending, let's call it, searches if you need to.
Very good. Have access to the recording of the meeting. I believe that is the end of all of the questions that I have. Last call for any questions. Let me look at the chat one last time. Very good. Okay, I believe we can wrap at this point. Once again, thank you to Demetrius. I failed to do proper introductions at the beginning of this call. Demetrius is the CTO for our SLED account space, and I am a cloud strategist for the Defense Industrial Base. There is our URL for Planet Technologies. If you have any questions, feel free to email myself or Demetrius. Happy to answer back. And we hope that you've gotten value out of today's presentation. Thank you so much for attending.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.